Welcome, everyone. My name is Carolyn, and I'll be your host today for our All Things Analytics AMA. We have a few more folks joining us coming through the wait room, so I'm going to give everybody just a moment to get in and get their audio connected. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today at our All Things Analytics AMA. Over the next hour, we're going to go over multiple programs, of course, all regarding analytics. Hopefully get some of those commonly asked questions answered. We are going to introduce our panel in just a moment, but to kick things off, of course, just a little bit of housekeeping. So please make sure, first of all, to have everybody keep yourselves on mute. That just allows whoever is speaking to have that clear audio without any background noise coming through. Your camera is optional, but very much welcomed, of course. We're going to be keeping our cameras on as much as we can throughout this session. You can ask questions at any point in time, of course, using the chat, which is at the bottom of your screen. This event is also being recorded, of course, and that link will be available afterwards. So to start, here is our panel here today, and I'm going to go through from left to right and have each of them introduce themselves very briefly, as of course, they'll get a few more minutes to speak as their programs come up across the next hour. So first to start with McLean.
Hi, I'm McLean Slaughter. I'm the program director for our MS in Data Science, which is housed within the math department here at Seattle U and works closely with a number of other departments, particularly computer science. My own background, I got a PhD in statistics from the University of Washington, and prior to that, bachelor's degrees in both math and psychology from Gonzaga University.
Thank you. Nathan?
Hi, I'm Nathan Colliner. I'm the director of the MSBA, which has been around for a few years now and has a great track record. We'll explain more about the differences between the programs in a bit. My PhD is actually in philosophy, of all things, seems unrelated, but and I have an MBA as well, and with a degree in certificate in business analytics. And I'm excited to talk with you all today.
Thanks, Nathan. Narajan, Chips?
Sure. I go by Chips. So, and you can see where the Chips comes from when you look at my name, the Ranjan Chipalkari, and that's the name I have used since high school. So no problem calling me that, please. I am the chair of the accounting department and the program director of the Master of Science in Accounting and Analytics and the Master of Professional Accounting. I did my PhD in accounting from the University of Massachusetts. I'm a chartered accountant, and I've also worked as an auditor and as a corporate accountant in my days. And I welcome all of you to this program, and we'll be happy to answer questions later on. Thank you.
Thanks, Chips. Jonathan?
Hey there, my name is Jonathan Burns. I'm one of the students in the Online MSBA program. I work as a senior business analyst for Weyerhaeuser, and I got my undergrad in industrial engineering from Texas A&M University.
Thanks, Jonathan. Nitharsan?
Hi, I just go by Nith. I'm a current MSDS student. I have experience teaching math and entrepreneurial experience. I have an MBA from University of Florida, as well as undergraduate degrees in mathematics and statistics.
Thank you. Leah?
Hi, everyone. My name's Leah. I'm also in the MS of Data Science program, and I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from Santa Clara University and prior experience in psychological research.
Thank you. Kristen?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen. I am the online admissions advisor for the business programs at Seattle University. Have about 10 years of higher educational experience, in addition to both a bachelor's and master's in psychology with specializations in project management, also a certified leadership and resilience capacity building coach, and am excited to be here.
Thank you. Brett?
Hello, my name is Brett. I work for the College of Science and Engineering, and I am an Albers student, so I'm involved in both of these. If you apply for the data science program, you will work very closely with me on your application, and I encourage you all to take a look at all of our programs.
Thanks, Brett. And of course, my name is Carolyn. I'm not only your host for today, but I am the program coordinator for our MS in Business Analytics and our MS in Accounting and Analytics programs. So if you have application questions, things like that, I am your go-to person there. All right. So to start off, we are going to, of course, be discussing the difference between data science and analytics. You know, what is the difference? We're going to go over some of this information here. So to kick us off, Brett and Nathan, take it away.
I'm going to pitch over to McLean or Nathan.
Okay.
Because McLean.
So one of the common questions that we get from folks is we have these two programs in, or more than two programs. We have programs in analytics, we have programs in data science, and there's overlap in them. But there's also differences in sort of where you go into depth and in where your focus is. One of the biggest differences, I think, is that the data science program, there's more of the sort of computer programming and coding work, whereas the analytics program, you're looking more at how to interpret and make use of and leverage some of the results from some of these models. Also, of course, analytics tends to be focused specifically in business as an area of application, whereas data science, some people will use data science and go into business applications with that, but there are a lot of other fields, life and medical sciences, manufacturing, machine learning fields that also make use of data science. So you don't get that business focus out of a data science program the way that you would with our analytics programs.
Yeah. Oh,
go for it.
Okay, yeah, that's a great overview, McLean. I'll add a couple things. So analytics is just a fancy word that means data analysis. So the idea of business analytics is that you're analyzing data, and you always do it to create some value, but in the context of what? So our program obviously is in the context of business. A way to think about it is that we have, there's these very well-known old business problems, and it turns out that most of them, all of them can be addressed, and some of them can be solved with data. And so you're learning how to solve business problems with data and data analysis. So, I mean, you're right. There is so much overlap between the two programs, but ours is definitely more focused in the context of business, like using those skills to solve business problems. We do have coding classes, but as McLean pointed out, there's less focus on that and more focus on how do we use statistics to analyze the data to solve business problems. And I'm happy to talk more about it, or if we're on to our next.
Yeah, I think we could maybe, answer some particular questions once we get to the separate presentations for each program. But this at least gives you an overview of what that difference is.
I just wanted to pipe in and say that we sort of straddle all sorts of things out here because we are specifically Master of Science in Accounting and Analytics. So there is, as you know, in accounting, there's transaction processing and analytics. Both of those go on hand to hand. So we do have the analytics, and the context is accounting, as Nathan very correctly mentioned. We do have low-tech coding, but there is a lot of usage of Python and R for some of the analytics work in the accounting world. If there is any disruption in any industry, the one industry that has been hit really hard is the accounting world. And it's something that we just have to adapt to in our program very rapidly. We do have things like IT audit. So there's a lot of data science, data privacy, data security issues that we have to handle as part of the audit process. So we are sort of all over the place, just to make it give you a sense of why we are here in this, in the same boat out here. Thank you.
Thank you to all three. So again, of course, going into data science and analytics, much to what they spoke to on the previous slide, is how they rely on each other. Of course, McLean or Nathan, do one of you want to elaborate a little bit further?
Sure. I mean, the basic basket of tools is very similar, if not identical. In both programs, like you have to either be good at statistics or be willing to become good at statistics. I say it that way because, I believe very strongly in the growth mindset and that people learn to do new things. And so, you can spend your lifetime avoiding math like I did. And then later in life, you realize how important it is and how useful and fun statistics can be. Also, machine learning is going to be central to both degrees, as well as some programming skills, as we mentioned already.
And one of the important things that I like to note is that there's a difference in sort of the scale of the projects that where a business analytics might do it versus a data scientist. Data science projects tend to be on a longer time scale because they're building sort of robust tools that they can go out and take out to all sorts of different industries, whereas business analytics problems may attack a specific problem. So you can see a few examples we have up there. Business analytics problem might be something like create a business plan to determine how many employees a store needs to exceed 60 million in annual revenue, which is a very specific problem in a very specific context. Whereas a data science problem might be create a model that can help detect fraudulent transactions, which is a sort of longer term project that you might apply to a lot of different things. So even a lot of the tools are the same, but the time scale might be a little bit different.
Yeah, I think that's useful, Brett. And I go back to what I mentioned earlier, where you have these business problems that have existed for decades. That are the problems themselves are well known, but it's just that now that there's so much data available, there's new tools to be able to solve those problems. And so the example you gave is a very good one. Like that's a problem. How many employees does this department store need to exceed 60 million in revenue? That's a problem that would have existed decades ago, right? But now there's data analysis tools, there's data and data analysis tools to allow us to address that question in a new way. And so like you have, people asking this question, then someone might say, oh, well, let's ask our business analytics team to help us figure out new ways to address it.
Thank you so much, Nathan, and everyone on this.
If I may add, say, an accounting problem, which would be, we have a whole bunch of transactions that are processed, and we want to find out which are the particular entries or transactions that are processed at a year end. That's when most of the errors or fraud takes place. That's an accounting problem that requires large transaction data sets. And the data science problem there is actually a very good example also of an accounting problem that we face. Fraud detection is a big thing in the accounting world.
Thank you. All right.
So at this point, I'd like to just briefly introduce the MS in Data Science program, some of the basics about the application. And then I want to save a few minutes so we can hear from our current MSDS students. So can we, Carolyn, next slide, please? Or whoever's got the slides.
Yes.
So the Masters of Data Science program at Seattle University, this is the one program we're talking about today that is not in the Albers School of Business. So this is in the College of Science and Engineering. It is a 45 credit program that is delivered over 6 quarters. It is 6 quarters to graduate. We can make it longer, but we cannot make it shorter. The next start date for this program is in fall 2022. And one of the great parts about this program is that we try to connect the students with some real world industry so they can get some experience before they graduate. Next slide. Every student who's in the program is going to complete an industry-sponsored capstone project. This is run through the Project Center in the College of Science and Engineering. And the Project Center partners with major companies from the region and from across the US to help students prove their skills in the real world. So students will take their data science education to a problem posed by Amazon or T-Mobile or Starbucks or F5, and they'll get a chance to apply their lessons to a problem that somebody's actually having. The Project Center is a great resource for our students. The data science program is having its first batch of projects next year. So 2023 will be or 22-23 will be the first year we have data science projects. And the sponsors you see on the screen there are recent sponsors in the Project Center who've worked with our engineering and computer science departments. Next slide, please. The data science program is open to students from most backgrounds. So there's three prerequisite courses that are required for consideration for admission into the data science program: a statistics course, an integral calculus course, and a programming course in Python. So as long as you can get those three courses, then the rest of we can take students from any academic background as long as your grades are strong enough and you've completed this prerequisite coursework. Please note, we do have online options for completing the Python programming, and please talk to the department about that. Next slide, please. And then finally, just to let you know about some outcomes in the College of Science and Engineering, the MS Data Science program is new. So we're in our first year right now. So we haven't had anybody graduate from it yet. But you can see some recent employers for the college. So for students coming out of engineering and computer science programs. And we're proud to say in the college that we've got some great connections to local employers, and that our students can typically go out and they have great opportunities to find interviews and to hopefully find strong jobs. So last 3 or 4 years, you can see a lot of great companies that have hired Seattle University graduates. And we look forward to our first batch of data science students graduating next year, and we can see where they go off to after that. So that's just a little bit about the data science program, sort of the nuts and bolts. But I do want to take a few minutes to talk about the experience in the program. So I'm going to pitch it over to Professor Slaughter, and he's going to help moderate a discussion with our two students, Nith and Leah, so they can share a bit of their experience before we move on to the next programs.
Yeah, so thank you to Nith and Leah for being able to join us for this. So want to start by just opening it up. If anyone has any questions that you'd like to ask for Nith and Leah about what their experiences in the program have been like, feel free to drop those in the chat. We do have a couple of questions that aren't targeted to Leah and Nith. Are there any government or NGO partners for the capstone projects? Possibly. I think we're still, identifying partners for what those projects are going to look like, because as Brett mentioned, the MSDS is a new program that's just started. Historically, within our college, most projects that folks have worked with have been industry partners, but there are occasionally nonprofit or NGO partners who we've had people work with as well.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to answer that in the abstract. It's because what happens when the professor is preparing the class is they will start contacting people that organizations that have good projects, and so it's hard to guarantee like, oh, it's always going to be this or it's always going to be that. Like right now, most of my capstone students in business analytics are working with Boeing, for example, but that might not be true next summer.
And we had a question about the prerequisites. Yeah, it's the probability and statistics prerequisite is just an introductory probability and stats course. Someone also asked, can the student help with finding a partner? We have not usually done that with projects in our college. We have enough industry connections, but if someone happens to have some exciting connections, they could certainly talk to the folks in the project center, and we might be able to make something like that happen.
And students, I can go through the chat and I can answer some of these questions in text, but I want to make sure we preserve time for all the other programs. So I would like to hear just a bit from Nith and Leah. So Leah, I have a question for you. You're coming from a non-STEM background. You come from psychology. And I'm curious if you could share what the transition has been like towards data science when you're not coming from a science and technology background.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I came from psychology and I had no experience with coding whatsoever. And it was definitely intimidating coming into this program. I felt like a really big jump for me. And even just applying, seeing the prerequisites, seeing the Python requisite, I almost didn't apply, but, I decided to go for it. And then I took the Python prerequisite class online over the summer before starting the program, and I'm really glad I did. So yeah, I guess my advice to anyone, if you're kind of in a similar situation, is just go for it. And if you don't know how to code, it's something that this program will help you learn on the way. It's not something that you have to be an amazing programmer to start out with. I feel like I was definitely able to catch up just throughout the program so far. So just don't let that hold you back.
Great. Thank you, Leah. And Nith, sorry, go ahead, McLean, you want to say?
Oh, no, I think we were probably going to ask Nith about the same thing, so go for it.
Yeah, so Nith, you did come from a math and statistics background, and so I'm curious if you can share why you chose data science over maybe another field you could have gone to, and what your experience in the program has been.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like a natural progression when you learn math and statistics is to either go a more theoretical side or a more applied side. I was more interested in applied math and statistics, and fundamentally data science is combining math, statistics, coding to solve real world problems. So it was kind of a natural progression to go down the data science route.
Great, and thank you both very much. So Nith and Leah are going to be around for the Q&A at the end. So if you do think of more questions for them, please save them for the end. But we do want to make sure that we have time to talk about the other programs. So Carolyn, who's up next? And thank you, Nith and Leah.
Thank you so much. Next is our MS in Business Analytics program. So here, I will be speaking a little bit about the program. Nathan, of course, will be able to jump in with some additional information. To start off, our Master of Science in Business Analytics program did start in 2016. We are ranked #1 in the Northwest by the 2021 U.S. News and World Report. Our business analytics program does have a 100% placement rate. And of course, we do have both face-to-face and online programs for this master's. We will get to specifically the online MSBA in just a moment. Our MSBA program is STEM designated. We do have a once-a-year fall quarter start, and we do also have, of course, a few prerequisites for this program. They are statistics and calculus to incorporate the business math aspect. And then we do have a programming prerequisite as well for the MSBA program. However, this programming is actually a course link provided to students who have been accepted. So after they already go through the application process and are accepted to the program, then they are provided the programming course to complete right before the start of the program. So if you have additional programming background, that's fantastic. You're still required to do this programming course to make sure all of our students are ready to go for fall quarter, all on the same page with the programming aspect. The program is 45 credits in total, and there are a few different program durations that you can choose from. Depending on if you are international or domestic, there is a minimum 6 credit requirement to stay in active status for international students, but you can complete the program across all of these durations for both international and domestic students. We do also, of course, have internships available for credit. And I will note that for the face-to-face MSBA program, if you're looking to do an internship as a part of the program, you are going to be looking at longer than 12 months to complete that program. If you're looking at a 1-year, 12-month option, that is without including an internship within that. So for this, I do want to open it up to Nathan to speak to the program a little bit and just cover additional aspects.
Yeah, well, maybe I can start with a question from the chat.
Yes.
Ben writes, interested to see how the MSBA can help someone already in the analytics implementation world. I think the answer to that is generally the same way that an MBA would help someone that's already in the business world, where you're formalizing your education, you're stepping your game up. It's a sign to your employers and potential employers that you're serious about this. But more seriously on the content side, in analytics, we've been talking about it as using data and data analysis to solve traditional business problems. And the thing is, there's so many automated systems and software programs, you'll always be able to get an answer to a question. You'll always be able to click a button and then some numbers pop up. You'll always be able to type something out and then a graph pops up. Anybody can do that. But the idea is that if you can do that to create value, if you can do that well, that's actually a rare skill that does require quite a bit of formal training. And so that is what, all our classes are focused on. In our program, we have classes in machine learning. We have classes in finance and accounting that, focus on using analytics to solve those problems. We have courses on law and ethics, and all of those are about, so it doesn't actually require much training to get some results. You can always click a button and get results, but how do you do that well? How do you do it thoughtfully? How do you get the context and really understand the business and deliver the value that you want? If you can find that spot, if you understand the context of the data and the ethical and legal ramifications of it, and then how to use statistics to apply it, which is what our courses focus on, that's a very, very valuable skill set. And you'll never run out of people that want to employ you.
Great, thank you, Nathan. I'm reviewing the chat right now to see if we have additional questions specifically for our business analytics program. If anybody does have any specific questions, feel free to pop those into the chat right now. We'll also be able to speak to those at the end, of course. Let's see here. Nathan, do you see any ones that I'm missing?
Okay, so Leanne writes, bachelor's in business analytics, is it a good idea to follow that up with an MSBA? Also, are there opportunities to find internships or part-time jobs during studying? So the answer to the second question is yes. I mean, businesses love to find people still in grad school and employ them part-time. We have a system called Handshake where employers input their job ad, and there's a lot of job ads to look through. There's just simply not enough people that know data science and business analytics in the world. The supply is not meeting the demand. And as far as if you already have a business analytics undergrad, I mean, that's a good question. So a lot of people, I mean, we do have a lot of people in our MSBA that had a business analytics undergrad. I would say that, I guess it just depends on how price sensitive you are and how immediately you want to get your career started. I mean, if you just have an undergrad in business analytics, you will have opportunities. You will have job opportunities to walk into. And sometimes, that's hard to say no to. It's like, well, I want to get started in my career right now. And that's definitely something to think about. The MSBA is just going to enhance whatever skills you have. There's probably, I would say, like comparing our master's program to our undergraduate program, there's 3 times as many classes. And so a lot of our undergraduate classes are like taking a few important pieces of graduate classes and condensing them all at once. We don't have time to review everything. And so it's not like a different kind of material, but it like goes into much more depth. So yeah, I mean, that can definitely be very impressive to employers and deliver a lot of value for you and your career. But you'll also have opportunities with just the business undergrad for the analytics undergrad.
All right. So in the essence of time, I am going to move on to our next program. And of course, we'll have time at the end for additional questions as well. For our online MSBA program, so Nathan, you're still up here. Oops. And then, of course, Kristen, to speak more on our online program as well.
Excellent. Oh, Dr. Nathan, I'm sorry.
Kristen, if you want to get going, that's great.
Okay, awesome. No problem. For those who are interested in our online MSBA program, I would like to take some time just to briefly cover the specifics related to this program, in addition to having a current online MSBA student joining us today, and leave some time for him to answer some specific questions as to what the online environment is like. So the online MSBA is a fully online asynchronous opportunity that provides added flexibility to working professionals. The online MSBA program also works to provide prospective students with a big picture mentality in today's data-centric business world, just as Dr. Nathan spoke of, with there being such a high demand and not enough supply. The goal of the program is also to prepare contemporary professionals to face challenges that arise from complex and unstructured data sets. It also works to train prospective students to visualize strategic recommendations with global awareness, and also honing in on their ability to sort, organize, analyze, and act on data's hidden insights, while being able to communicate these with incisive strategy and clarity. The online MSBA program structure consists of about 15 courses, 48 credit hours in total. There is one required online R and Python programming prep course that's designed to really kind of help students acclimate to understanding a little bit more about the programming languages, so you do feel a bit prepared when you do start the program. The program is also designed to be completed in as few as 2 years, with 3 annual starts per year and 10-week quarter of classes. So as I mentioned before, our MSBA students are provided with a valuable opportunity to develop into fluent data poets or data translators. It also provides them with a valuable opportunity to prepare to thrive in data and intelligence analyst roles, which are currently in high demand. Within this online program, there are also data translation challenge assignments where students are tasked with following a 3-step approach to analyzing and understanding complex data strategies, and then transforming them into business strategies and business solutions. The goal is to also further shape the business student by modeling the problems faced in a professional setting, and shape one into a fluent professional who can overcome them. This program also requires an MSBA capstone project, which is an application of data analytics in the planning and execution of a real-life development project for an industry partner. Now, again, because we do value community and also understand the businesses relationships here at Seattle University, this uniquely designed online program also has a residency retreat that's designed to teach students how to build and maintain constructive working relationships, lead and influence others appropriately, manage conflict professionally and effectively. And it has been described as one of the most transformational and influential experiences that students have had in their business program with Seattle U. So I did want to take some time to have Jonathan to speak to a little bit about his current experience with the online flexibility of the MSBA, and just kind of what his experience has been like so far. Jonathan, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Christian.
No problem. Thanks so much for joining us. So I just wanted to ask some of the questions that we tend to get, Jonathan, about this program is, what is the Python and the R and Python prep course actually like, if you don't mind sharing?
Sure. Yeah. The Python and the R prep course are really just focused on, do you have a basic understanding of how the programming languages function, and what and how do you handle just some really basic work in there. And so some of it's a little bit about general programming language thoughts, just the idea of, there are variables, there's strings, difference between integers and floats and stuff like that. So it's the prep course itself is really low level. If you have any experience with really any programming language, then you're going to be able to breeze through that very easily. And even if you're maybe a little rusty on that, there's a lot of resources available through that course, and the instructor teaching it where you'll be able to pick up on it pretty quick. So it's important that you complete that you understand what's going on, but I wouldn't view that as any sort of real barrier. Again, it helps if you have programming experience. I think this program will be difficult if you are, completely green to programming entirely. But it's if you have any interest in it, if you have any experience at all, I think it's not so bad.
Excellent. And thanks so much for sharing. That's a great segue to just another question that we often get from students is, what is the data translation element of the curriculum? And in your opinion, how do you feel that this has maybe given you a competitive edge or can offer a competitive edge?
Sure. Yeah. So the data translation component is really every single course has a project that's based on real world data, real world problems. And the idea is you need to come up with, usually you have to come up with your own question that you're trying to answer, but based on a data set or guidance from the professor, there's a goal of, you need to answer a question, come up with a question, something like that. And the way that it's structured by looking at real world data. There's one example where you're looking at data from, I believe, Ghana. There's an African country looking at a bunch of their census data in order to figure out how to relate house income and health and equity, so that a company could figure out how to market their farming. A hypothetical company could market their farming equipment to specific areas. And so it was all about correlating different data pieces that, again, it's real world census data. So there's no clean answers. There's really no correct answer either. It's simply, here's a problem you have to solve. Here's the data, figure it out. Of course, the professor helped us through that as well. We had regular meetings. It was a team effort. So you're not in it alone. You're not just thrown out to the wolves. But it really gives you a lot of valuable experience in figuring out, how do I find a real world answer, even if I don't have everything laid out in a test where I know that I can get an A, B, C, or D. And that's something that I think a lot of people coming out of undergrads struggle with, is in the real world, there aren't clean answers to anything. You have to put together a compelling argument for what it is that you're trying to justify, what your analysis is trying to justify. And the data translation challenge really sets you up well in figuring that out before you get into a career.
Wonderful. Excellent. That was excellent description. And thank you so much for sharing that. Jonathan will be on for the remainder of the webinar. So if anyone does have any questions about the online flexibility, online offering, and what that looks like, Jonathan will be available to answer questions. And I did want to leave a few minutes for Dr. Nathan to also chime in as well.
Yeah. So the online MSBA, the degree you get at the end of whether you do the face-to-face program or the online program is an MSBA. So they're not separate degrees. It's the same degree. It's just different modalities. And why would you choose one modality of the other? Well, that's a personal decision. This is an online, right? So you can be taken from anywhere in the world, but it turns out that almost every single person who takes the MSBA is, within an hour drive of campus. But for whatever reason, it's inconvenient. Traffic is terrible. They have kids at home, like their job doesn't allow them, or they have to travel a lot. So those are the sorts of things that make a difference. I would say, the face-to-face degree, the traditional face-to-face classroom, was designed in 2016. And so the online is newer. It started in 2019. And I can tell you that, the online classes just are with some exceptions here and there, the face-to-face classes in a different modality. So it's the same content, and same degree. I would say the biggest difference to pay attention to is that, and this is not our decision, this was the decision by the United States government. We can't do anything about it. In the fully online program, you don't get any OPT or CPT. So if you are an international student and you are planning or hoping to work in the US, the online MSBA is it won't help you with that, but the face-to-face MSBA will.
Thank you, Dr. Nathan. I'll go ahead and pass it back over to Carolyn.
Great. Thank you so much, Kristen and Nathan, Jonathan, of course, for all of your really great information here. Moving on to our next program, we do have our MS in Accounting and Analytics. This is our fourth program here, and as we go into the last 20 minutes of our session today, we will have some time for questions, of course, at the end. So going into our Accounting and Analytics Master's Program, this is a STEM designated program, and this has been specifically designed for folks who have a bachelor's degree in accounting to then move forward towards their master's, also in accounting and analytics. Our Accounting and Analytics program has been ranked #1 in the Northwest by the 2021 U.S. News and World Report. A bit about our program, it is 45 credits, and you have different durations for this program available as well to help work. If you're working or if you have other commitments, you do have that flexibility. Of course, you do also have the availability for internship with this program as well, up to 12 credits with program director approval. This program also starts a few times throughout the year. We have summer quarter, fall quarter, and winter quarter starts. So I do want to go into some questions and answers here, which of course I welcome Chips to jump in and help us go over them. I am going to speak to the scholarship opportunities as they do vary program by program, but to loop in both our MSBA and Accounting and Analytics programs quickly here, we have scholarships available for both our Face-to-Face Business Analytics program and our Accounting and Analytics program. So if you follow the deadlines that are set on the website for those scholarship due dates, you are eligible to apply for those. For accounting specifically, there are selective scholarships up to about $2,500. This is available for both domestic and international students. The way that the Albers scholarships are reviewed for our Face-to-Face MSBA and our Accounting and Analytics program is that the review committee takes a look at your cumulative GPA from prior coursework, as well as a few short answer questions on that scholarship form you submit to make a determination about the scholarship award. These are partial scholarships. We do not offer full ride scholarships as a part of this, so that's why the amount you see on the screen is a little bit lower. In terms of job opportunities, I'm going to let Chips take it away for this slide.
Sure. And before I do that, it's important for everyone to understand one thing, that what we are doing in the accounting program is something that is required by this. It's required by the CPA certification now, the ACCA, the Chartered Accountancy. So we are accountants who are taking the journey towards data science and business analytics. So we are sort of in the space between those two big pillars in Seattle University, the business analytics program and the data science program. So we are right there. And at the core of it is you have to be good accountants to be able to understand things like IT audit and the sort of coding we do. We do have an R class, where we do predictive analytics, and some of the accountants do learn Python, but we do what we call low-tech coding, which is things like Alteryx, Tableau. We have RPA, robotic process automation, is big in the accounting world, things like UiPath. Artificial intelligence, blockchain issues are increasingly becoming important. And you and I, as an accountant, will need to know how to work in those environments, how to audit those environments. So those are the issues that we are going to be facing. My colleagues in the other programs talked about problems that they would deal with, and some of the things, for example, warranty liabilities. How do you estimate how much of a warranty expense should you book in a year? That's a huge data analytic problem. Allowance for doubtful debts. How do you know what's the credit risk associated with a customer and for which you have to make an allowance or book bad debt expenses? That's a huge data analytic problem. So we face data analytics problems, but we also have transaction processing issues which relate to how data is structured and its privacy thereof. Those are all issues that we handle. Jobs, and one more thing, if you do not have, the MSA is designed specifically for undergraduates in accounting. However, if you do not have an undergraduate in accounting, we have another STEM program that we are not talking about out here, which is the MPAC program, which is now going to be expanded to 54 credits, where we will develop your skill set in accounting and do some of the analytics stuff. Jobs-wise, we do have things on, I think the slides have gone ahead. Thank you. The job opportunities, we do have good placements in the Big Four. We do have good placements in the mid-sized firms that need desperately a lot of analytics. And you will be working with the data scientists and the business analysts who don't really know under accounting to solve accounting problems. That's where we fit in. Next slide, please. Admission requirements, I believe you can have an undergrad, we talked about it, an undergrad in accounting, or you need to have a professional certification with those specific courses, or you can join our MPAC program, which is also a STEM program. Work experience greatly helps. Next slide, please. I'm answering the specific questions we have received before. So these are the slides. And what if you don't have the foundations for the MSAA? No problem. You can join the MPAC program, which is STEM and contains courses. So I've answered those questions already. Next slide, please. Thank you. So if there are any more questions, I'll be able to answer them. I think there was a question in the chat that I'll be happy to answer too.
Yes, I know we just recently got a question regarding our accounting program about the eligibility, especially about the prerequisites. If you have an accounting bachelor's degree, of course, that makes the whole process very simple and straightforward. You are eligible for the MSAA. If you do not have a bachelor's in accounting or the equivalent, you're welcome to email myself and we can take a look and see what your background is and see if you're eligible for the Master's of Professional Accounting program, perhaps instead. We will have all of our contact information for the coordinators on the next slide as well. So you can take a picture of that in just a minute when we get to it. But let me double check and see if there are additional questions regarding the accounting programs in the chat. All right, Chips, we do have one recent question about how would an MSAA grad approach analytical or substantive procedures differently when compared to a normal accountancy graduate?
So let me answer the question there is no such thing as a normal accountancy graduate. All accountancy graduates now need to know analytics and emerging technology. That's the way of the accounting world now. That's the total disruption of the accounting world. When I used to do auditing, to answer your question about substantive procedures, for example, when I used to do auditing, when you test, so obviously Bipan, you know a little bit of auditing, when you check for whether a liability has been paid in the next year at the year-end audit, to check for whether liabilities have been fully accounted for or not at the end of the year. Previously, we used to take a sample of cash payments and simply check on a sample basis, and we had sampling theory and all that. That's gone. That's tossed out of the window. Now we look at the full set of liabilities, unpaid liabilities, and we compare them to the full set of cash payments. And these are millions and millions of transactions, and we match the 100%. There's no sampling anymore. And we do that as part of the audit process. Similarly, for analytical procedures, there's so much more scope for getting data, dredging data from the ACC, the Security Exchange website, and constructing ratios on a real-time basis using XBRL data, web tags, and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that is changing. To be in the accounting world now means you have to adapt to those changes very rapidly. And this is a good time to be in the accounting world because you will grow with the profession. Thank you.
Thank you, Chips. All right, so as we go into the last 10 minutes here of our session today, we're going to open it up to any other questions y'all might have. But to start off, I'm going to answer a couple of the most common questions that we do receive. The first being about GMAT GRE test requirements. Seattle University has extended its policy to make the GRE and GMAT test optional for all programs through the fall of 2022. I will mark a caveat with this and say that for our face-to-face MSBA program, since it only starts one time per year in fall, it is one of our most competitive programs. And so having a test score can make your application more competitive. So it's encouraged, but with that, it is optional officially across. Also, I want to make sure everyone knows that for application fees, they are $0 until fall of 2022. Our university has waived that application fee all the way for applicants through next fall. Additionally, our graduate admissions team is accepting unofficial transcripts to be used for evaluation and admission decisions. So if you're unable to have your official copies of transcripts submitted with your application, if it's quicker to submit your unofficial transcripts, we can review those. And if you're an international student with those international transcripts, we are able to take those and do our in-house evaluation using those unofficial transcripts as well in order to make a determination and a decision on your application. All right. So with that, I know we've been asking quite a few questions. I've seen quite a few come through in the chat, and everybody's been really great to try to answer those. I know I've seen Brett and everybody in there answering those questions. So let's go here and see what the most common questions are. What are some recent ones?
I encourage anybody who has questions for our students to please ask them because the student panelists aren't usually involved in the admissions process like this, and it's a rare opportunity to hear from them. Ben has a question. Students, how do you find the program workload, especially if you work full time? So I think we'd love to hear from a few programs on that.
Sure, I'll start then. I guess I'm in the OMSBA program, so I work full time. So it's part of the reason why I'm in the online program, which I'm also pursuing full time. So as a whole, I have a lot on my plate right now, but it's all feasible. It's all doable. All the classes are set up where they have regular due dates. Some classes have everything due on Sunday. Some of them have everything due on Friday. Some have them split up between 2 days. But the weekly schedule is very regimented. So for the workload, as long as you're looking at it in that week schedule of here's my days where I need to have these things done, I think it's 100% doable. There's some nights I ended up staying rather late finishing up some projects, but I've also kind of made a commitment where I'm not really intending to do schoolwork on Fridays or Saturdays, and that's worked out fine for me. So it doesn't have to be rigid, but holding yourself accountable to a schedule makes a big difference. And like I said, I think that if you do that and you're responsible, it's entirely doable.
For me, I work part-time, so I don't have a full-time position, but last quarter I worked a little bit more hours. This quarter I decided to reduce my hours a little bit just so I could spend a little bit more time on schoolwork and also spend more time on developing a portfolio to later land an internship or a job after the program. So I'm definitely working less so I can focus more on the future. It is quite a lot of a workload for the MSDS program.
Yeah, for me, I'm also working part-time right now on an internship. So I am grateful because our classes, for anyone that's wondering, are at night, 3 nights a week for full-time. So you can, be at work all day and then go to class afterwards.
And if I may add, I'm sorry, I have been remiss. I didn't bring any student or any of my students to this forum, but our students can do the MSA on a part-time basis. exactly as what Leah mentioned. And a second thing that is also common to our program is that our classes are in the evening from 6 to 9 o'clock. So you can work during the day and sort of to do the program part-time.
Nith and Leah, there's a question about student support in the MSDS program. I'm wondering if you have anything to share about the level of support you've received, or if you haven't received enough support. But what would you like to share?
Sure. I guess like academically, at least, I feel, I'm not sure what type of support you're referring to, but academically, I feel like there have been some times where I feel behind on things like math, and I feel like I was able to get support from my professors, and my professors were willing to spend time to kind of help me along when I was struggling, and also getting support from other students that might be better at certain things. Everyone's been very supportive of each other.
Yeah, kind of along the same lines. The professors are great at answering questions, being there. They're very supportive of you if you're willing to put the work in, of course. And, really a big part of what our cohort is trying to do is build community so that we can help each other out whenever, we need it, and we can go to each other for that as well.
If I may echo, just since we're on the topic of student support, for the online program as well, each student is also assigned a student success coordinator. So they do assist with time management, books, registration, ensuring that you're keeping in contact with professors, other classmates, etc. So there is also extensive support offered to our online students as well.
And I just had to add that, this is in our genes. This is Seattle University. So whichever program you go to, you will find strong support to students at any point of time. So that's true to us, for our program too. So that's not an issue.
Additionally, just to add on to that, if you do apply to a program within the Albers School, we do have a dedicated placement center that is fully staffed to help our students find internship opportunities as well as job opportunities when they're ready. They also host our annual mentor fair, as well as workshops and career fairs throughout the year to help you either transition between positions or, look for that first internship or look for that first job as well. So just some additional resources, just some of many available to Seattle University students. So as we get closer to the end here, I do want to ask Jonathan one more question about the workload and time commitment for our online MSBA courses. Jonathan, approximately how many hours do you spend per class, would you say?
That is a good question. On a weekly basis with 2 classes, I'm probably spending a total of 16 to 20 hours. So it's from 8 to 10 hours per class per week is what I'm doing. I know that varies a lot depending on whether or not you have a project that week. Exam weeks, you're just studying, and sometimes team projects you gotta set up time to work with everyone. So there's some weeks I spent a lot more than that working on projects. Some weeks I spent less than that when it's a lighter workload. But 8 to 10 hours per class per week is about where I'm at.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. We received a couple of additional questions about application review timing, as well as where to submit certain materials. Quickly, I just want to highlight that for the required MSBA essay that's on the application, you can submit that under the personal statement section. You can upload multiple documents. So if you wanted to submit the optional personal statement in addition to the required 300-word essay, you can upload both of those documents under the personal statement section. Just make sure to rename those documents so they're clearly identified. For letters of recommendation, those are optional as well for our Albers programs, but if you wanted to submit them, you can submit up to 4. For review times on applications, For our accounting programs, it takes about 4 weeks, I would say, to review applications, and those are on a rolling basis. For our business analytics program that's face-to-face, those deadlines are very specific, as in our priority deadline is on January 20th, which is coming up next week. All applications submitted up until that deadline are batched and reviewed together. If you are unable to meet that first priority deadline, which is also the scholarship deadline, the final deadline for our business analytics face-to-face program is March 20th. Anything submitted between January 20th and March 20th are batched together and reviewed after the second final deadline has passed. So that's a little bit different timing compared to some of the other programs. I see we also had a question about the personal statement. The personal statement can be in the same document if you submit it with the essay, but I encourage you to attach those two separately, just so we know exactly as a part of the review process what we're looking at for each document. All right, and with that, I'm sorry, we are over time. Thank you so much all for joining us. Let me move to the next slide here. Here's everybody's contact information. If you have questions regarding our MS in Data Science, please contact datascience@seattleu.edu. For both of our MS in Accounting and Analytics or our MS in Business Analytics programs, please contact Albers with an S, gradinfo@seattleu.edu. And for our online MS in Business Analytics program, you can contact Albers with an S, online@seattleu.edu. And I see, Brett, do you have one more thing to add? Yes.
So we've reached the end of our time, but if it's possible to keep the room open, then I'm willing to stay on and keep answering questions as long as people have them. But for all of our panelists who participated, we said 1 o'clock, and so I think we can release you. But if it's an option to keep the room open, I'm willing to stay around and keep answering questions. So with that, thank you to the panelists, certainly, for giving their time. Yeah, just want to let you know.
Thanks, Brett. Yes, I'm available. We can keep it open for maybe additional 10 minutes if folks do have questions, but if everybody needs to jump off, thank you again for joining us here today. Again, we will have this recording available afterwards. I appreciate your all participation.
Thank you all very much. And any other questions, I'm happy to stay as long as students continue to have questions, and if you have questions for us. So.
Brett, there's a question that came up in the chat that you might have good information on, just regarding what the sort of typical total cost is for these programs.
Sure. So I can put it again, or I might have sent it to someone specific. I'll put a link to the tuition page in the chat. All the tuition at Seattle University at the graduate level is charged per credit. So the amount of money you pay in a given quarter is going to depend on how many courses you take in that quarter. Oh, that went to Carolyn. I'll send it to everybody. So here is the link to the tuition page, and it's all of the different graduate programs broken down by their per credit tuition cost. Keep in mind that this tuition is for 21-22 academic year, and tuition does increase a bit every single year. So you can take these, but you can still use this information to get a good ballpark or good estimate of how much it would cost to go for a given program. And I think all of our programs are 45 credits. Most of them are 45 credits. So 45 times the number. Andrews is asking, can I pursue an MSDS with a strong interest in data engineering? Andrews, I'm not totally sure what the difference is or what you mean when you say data engineering. Did you maybe want to turn on your mic and maybe you can ask that out loud and we can try and answer your question? And if anybody else has any other questions, feel free to ask.
So just a thought on Andrew's question there. Depending on exactly what it is you're thinking you want to do in data engineering, that's often sort of more on the computer science side of the realm of data science. And our computer science program offers a master's in computer science with a data science specialization. And so I would suggest taking a look at the details of that program, and I'll pull up a link for you on that one to see if that might look like a better fit for what you're interested in. That's going to be much more programming intensive, which would get into more of the sort of data management aspects of that data engineering.
And the reason we didn't talk about that program today is because it is a computer science program. So you do need a strong computer science background to qualify. So you're welcome to inquire about it, but it's a little different from the other programs we discussed today. Mohammed Hussein is asking, how many hours a week are international students eligible to work? If you are on an F1 visa, you are allowed to work up to 20 hours per week on campus. So those are the rules for F1, unless you are participating in CPT or some other special program. Question, international students at the graduate level, international students need to take 6 credits per quarter to qualify or to stay in status on an F1 visa. So F1 students need 6 credits per quarter for a graduate program. I think it's 12 at the undergraduate level.
And for reference, in the at least in the MSDS, if you're doing the regular, finish in 2 academic years, you're looking at either 9 or 6 credits per quarter, either 3 courses, each 3 credits, or some quarters 2 courses at 3 credits each. So that's the sort of typical load if you're on the 2-year track. If you're going slower, you could potentially be doing only 6 credits each quarter.
And that is similar for the Albers programs, excuse me, as well. So our courses are 3 credits each. So if you take 2 courses for that 6 credits, you'll be able to stay in active status. If you want to finish the program a little quicker, as we do have different durations for each program, you can take 9 credits, maybe 12 credits if you want to go really, really fast, but 6 or 9 is typically average.
And then we got a question about, for the data science program, is Python the main language, or are there other languages such as R? Yes, we also use R quite a bit. We have sort of some of our courses designed around Python and some designed around R, based on feedback from our industry advisory board, who have said that those 2 languages are both things that someone who's going into data science should have strong familiarity with. Andrew's asked about OPT being scrapped. No.
Not at Seattle U. So OPT is a U.S. federal government program, and so we strive to offer as many opportunities as we can under the rules that the federal government allows us to. So we don't want to get rid of OPT, and if the federal government got rid of it, then they would hear many protests from a lot of universities around the United States. So OPT, as far as we know, is still 1 year for most students, and then up to 3 years for students who are graduating from a STEM designated program.
All right. That was a quick 10 minutes. Does anybody have any other questions we can help with today?
Great, email us.
All right. Yes, our emails are on the screen. Again, thank you all for being here and sticking around a few extra minutes. With that, I think I'll close the room unless anybody has any last minute questions.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you. Take care,
everyone.
Everybody, hope to see you
Good day.
at CLU.